Augsburg is an ancient city founded in 15 BC by the Roman Empire, and it was named after the Roman Emperor Caesar Augustus. It played an important role in the Protestant Reformation in 1530 when a representative of Martin Luther came to the meeting of leaders within the Roman Empire and presented a paper on what the beliefs of the Lutheran Church were. It was after this meeting that the King of Germany accepted Lutheran Church as a Christian church against the wishes of the Roman Emperor. That led significantly to an advance of the Protestant Reformation.
Perlachturm, or Perlach Tower in English, was originally built in the 10th century, but rebuilt in the early 17th century by the same man who designed the town hall next door. The name literally means bear show tower, because they used to have bear shows in the central square, now called the Rathausplatz. Construction of the city hall, or Rathaus, was completed in 1624.
I'm standing in the middle of Maximillianstraße, which basically means Maximilian Street. In the old days, this was the main street for the city. It runs right in front of the Rathaus, which is the town hall. So that would have been the important place for business. Across the street from Rathaus is the Ratplatz. Did I say that right? Rathausplatz, there you go. And that is a social gathering place. Even today, it still is an important place where people gather for concerts or political events, what have you. Markets, perhaps. Anyhow, this is Maximillianstraße, which was the main street for Augsburg centuries ago.
Maximillianstraße was named after Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I, who ruled from 1486 until his death in 1519. It was his policies that led to the 1555 Peace of Augsburg, which basically stated that the ruler of each territory within the Holy Roman Empire had the authority to determine the religion of that territory, whether Catholic or Lutheran. The Peace of Augsburg also declared that only Catholicism and Lutheranism were the legitimate forms of Christianity.
So we're walking down the Maximillianstraße in Augsburg, heading to the cathedral, and we decided to stop for a pastry. This is a traditional Bavarian pastry called Zwetschgendatschi. It's a shortcake with Italian plums on top. It's a traditional Bavarian specialty. It's not overly sweet, but it is a little sweet. I'm glad I'm not counting my calories. This one tastes a little sweeter than the other. They're different flavors for sure.
Maximillianstraße leads past the Rathaus and Perlachturm to the Augsburg Cathedral, with its twin towers, added in 1075, surpassing 203 feet in height.
Behind me is Augsburg Dome. In English, That's the Augsburg Cathedral in Augsburg, Germany. It was built in 1065, that's when it was completed. And the two bell towers were added 10 years later in 1075. The bronze doors in the front date back also to the 11th century. The doors depict many scenes from the Old Testament, to include Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden. During World War II, there was substantial bombing in Augsburg, and many Augsburg buildings got damaged in the bombing. But the cathedral had only minimal damage. So most of what you can see here is original to the 11th century.
The Augsburg Cathedral, also known as the Cathedral of Augsburg or Dom St. Maria, the Cathedral of St. Maria, suffered significant damage during the air raid of April 25, 1945, near the end of World War II. The reconstruction efforts undertaken to restore the cathedral to its former glory took several years to complete. The cathedral also has several stained glass windows from the 14th century, but some from as early as the 11th or 12th century. Sadly, many of these were destroyed in the 1945 air raid. There is a lot of centuries-old artwork inside the cathedral, and yet even more was destroyed in 1945. One could argue that even the cathedral design and some of the burial plaques inside the cathedral can be considered works of art. The cathedral courtyard has a lot of artwork from the ancient Roman Empire. Some of this is believed to date back to the 2nd century AD.
Now we're at the Fugere housing development in Augsburg. In 1521, Jakob Fugger endowed the city of Augsburg with a bunch of money to build some row houses or establish this neighborhood called Fugere. Endowed them with enough money to build the houses for the Catholic poor of Augsburg. They have to be a citizen of Augsburg, have to be Catholic, have to be poor. To this date, these houses still exist, and they pay the equivalent of 88 cents euro per year for rent. There are some requirements, such as being back home by 10 p.m. because the gates lock, and saying prayers 3 times a day for the founder and his family, and attending church. In 1523, they had 52 two-story houses completed. In 1580, they built a church. It was heavily damaged in 1944 during air raids, but they started reconstruction in 45 and in 1973 expanded it. This is the Fougueray housing development. Founded in 1521, it's the oldest existing housing development in the world.
There is an entry fee if you want to go inside to look around. A portion of the city wall still remains with a reconstructed tower. Looking to the right of the tower, we see an old public water fountain.
For half the year, April 1st to October 31st, the pedestrian gate behind me is open from 7 a.m. and closes at 10 p.m. From November 1st until through March 31st, it opens at 7 a.m. and closes at 9 p.m. and then nobody can pass through the gate. Right next to the Rotes Tor is the waterworks for Augsburg, which consists of some water towers, some well pumps, and these were built prior to the 1400s, or at least early 1400s at the latest, because by 1416 these were supplying the water for all of Augsburg. The drinking water comes from a natural spring nearby in the woods. And this is possibly the oldest waterworks in all of Central Europe. So it is under consideration to become an UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Rotes Tor is a symbol of the Augsburg medieval history and the importance of fortifications for the defense of the city. It used to be called Spitaltor, or Hospital Gate in English, because it is the gate closest to where the Holy Ghost Hospital was in the 17th century. This sign on the wall here tells the hours when the gates are open and closed, different times of the year. Although that's not necessary to close the gates, they still do this out of tradition, as it has been done for centuries. The gate has been well preserved over the years, and the city has kept up efforts to maintain its historical integrity. Visitors to Augsburg can explore the Rotes Tor and its surroundings, like you see me doing. Outside the gate is a real lovely hiking or jogging trail and a outdoor performance space with lots of seating that was built in the early 20th century.
Behind me is Rotes Tor, which was built possibly as early as 1187, but definitely before 1223. Rotes Tor means red gate because the original color of the gate was red. As you can see, it is now since faded. On the other side of this gate, they have rebuilt what they thought the gate used to look like and have repainted it. This was one of the main city gates on the city wall for Augsburg for people to enter the city. They had to cross over this bridge, and then if the gate was open, they would probably pass a checkpoint before coming in.
Jews were driven out of the city in the mid-15th century, were not allowed to live here again until the early 19th century.
Behind me is a memorial to the Lehmann and Reinhardt families from the 1940s. The sign behind me says that Ferdinand and Katrina Reinhardt, with their children, were murdered at Auschwitz. And the relatives of the Reinhardt and Lehmann families found a new home here in Nordlingen in 1945. And the area we are in the 1930s, was the Jewish quarter.
The Nazis destroyed the synagogue here in 1938, and many of the families that lived here were sent away to concentration camps in the 1930s and 40s. After the war, many Holocaust survivors and their families found homes here. This is the Benedictine Abbey of Saints Ulrich and Afra, built in the late 16th century.
Behind me now is the Topsinger Tor, Topsinger Gate. It was built in 1388, rebuilt in the 1590s, and the dome was added in 1770. In the 15th century, the city of Augsburg had a gate and tower, watchtower built that was named the Vogeltor, the bird tower. But after it was built, the city council and mayor complained that it wasn't straight and didn't want to pay the builder, mostly because they were low on funds. The builder was very upset and offended and said that he could prove to them that the tower was straight. So the city councilman and the mayor followed him out to the gate. He climbed to the top, legend says, he climbed to the top of the tower, pulled down his trousers, and pooped. And legend says that it fell straight down to the ground and didn't touch the tower, proving that the tower was straight. There's also an addition to this legend that says the town councilman and the mayor were standing below him at the time. But sadly, in April of 1945, the tower received a direct hit during an Allied bombing air raid. And the tower was destroyed, but the arch that we see here today is original from the 15th century. But they rebuilt the tower above it starting in 1945.
For dinner, we decided to check out the restaurant next to our hotel, the Ratskeller, located under the Rathaus, the city hall. It serves traditional Bavarian cuisine.
So we conveniently found a restaurant next to our hotel, which is at the Rathaus. So it's called the Ratskeller. And my wife is having the Schweinehacks, which is pig knuckle prepared the Bavarian way with sauerkraut and potato dumpling, which is different than what she had in Prague, which was cooked the Czech style. And I'm having pork schnitzel with fries and cranberry jam. You can see it's really a large piece. It's a lot of food. Guten Appetit, guten Essen. If you like what you saw, give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe down below if you haven't already done so. Liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment to help me grow my channel. I appreciate all comments. Until next time, auf Wiedersehen, tschüss, bye bye.